Welcome to the Property Couch, where each week you get to listen to two of Australia's leading experts. Bryce Holdaway, co-host of Location Australia on Foxtel's Lifestyle Channel, co-host of Escape from the City on the ABC, and partner of Empower Wealth Advisory. Ben Kingsley, chair of Property Investors Council of Australia and the founder of Empower Wealth Advisory, named the 2018 and 2019 Property Advisory Firm of the Year. Stay tuned as they bring you the insider's guide to property, finance and money management.
All right, folks, welcome to the summer series of the Property Couch podcast. Welcome to you too, Ben. I'm very, very excited about today.
Oh, mate, I've got my ice, my drink's chilled on the ice. I've got a little bit of, zinc cream on the nose. I'm ready to go. The weather's getting better. We're actually allowed out of our houses. Pretty exciting here in Victoria. So look, I can't wait for the next couple of months. It's just going to be lots of fun. Some incredible interviews. It couldn't be a better setting after what has been a pretty challenging year for most.
Very challenging year, but we are changing gears. The summer series is exciting for a number of reasons, but most of all, it's because it's about the people. It's not about you and I. It's not about the expert guests that we get on throughout the year. It's actually about the people who we are doing this for, our community, our Coucher community, who are actually listening to the insights, implementing them, and it's making a difference in their life. So I'm so super excited for the next 9 weeks. We are doing summer series. It's a different format to what we normally do, Ben, but it's because we really want to quickly get into the interviews and talk to the people, and so that our community can actually hear what they're doing and hopefully get some really good takeaways that they can implement themselves as they look to improve their money management throughout 2021, Ben.
Hey, Bryce, speaking about takeaways, this is the first of our summer series episodes, but we've got some takeaways, right? The first one is we're giving away free copies of our best-selling book, Make Money Simple Again. Now, we're talking a lot about Money Smarts and our money management system and our My Wealth portal. Well, if you get the book, you automatically get a free account also on the My Wealth portal where you can implement your Money Smarts system. And secondly, Bryce, we have a little survey. First time we've surveyed our community. We want to learn a little bit more about who's in our community and, most importantly, what you want to tell us about how we can improve and make the best podcast for 2021 when we come out of summer series. So just a little heads up.
It's been our goal.
Yep.
It's been our goal each and every year to make next year better than the year before. And so it was a good initiative that you came up with to find out. Let's survey our community so they can tell us specifically the guests they want, the frameworks you want to hear, the gaps in the understanding, whatever it is that we can do to serve the Coucher community in 2021. The feedback, we will collate it, we will action it so that we can make 2021 the best year yet, Ben.
And where do they find the survey, Bryce, and the free book?
thepropertycouch.com.au/summer series, Ben. So we've made it super simple. Stiggy's done some work in the background to make sure that you get access to all of those things. Super, super simple. But the idea is really, really simple. It's case studies. It's showcasing people, their money transformation. Let's understand it in their words, how they've implemented it in their life so that we can see what transformation they have had so that everyone in our community can go, oh, that relates to me, that bit relates to me. Over the next 9 weeks, you are going to hear from some amazing people sharing being really transparent, let's be honest.
Vulnerable, transparent, showing up, telling us the wins, the losses. It's amazing.
It's amazing. So thank you to those folks on behalf of everyone in the community. I think they have done a wonderful, wonderful thing to help people improve their financial lives, which is really, really good. Today's guest is a cracker.
What a way to start the summer series.
We had a chat with Brendon. We learned all about how money was talked about in the household. We understood what it took for them to get their first, the deposit on the first house and the sacrifices they were prepared to make. We talk about where there's an amazing level of communication around finances within the relationship. We talked about a lot of things. So I reckon we should cut to the interview that we had with Brendon Deith right now. All right, Ben, today we've got a very special guest on our summer series. We are chatting to another person who is going to be really honest and courageous and tell us about their own money transformation. So today we are chatting with Brendon Deith. So first of all, welcome to the Property Couch, Brendon.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. A pleasure.
The pleasure's all ours. Hey, look, we're super excited to chat to you about a whole range of things, but the theme of the summer series is all about money transformations. You've put your hand up to talk to us about your own money transformation, which is amazing. But just so that our audience can get to know you, let's dive into a bit of your backstory and tell us a bit about yourself and sort of leading towards what money was like growing up in your household.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I'm married to a beautiful lady, Beck. I'm married when Kevin Rudd got elected in Kevin 07. And I've got two beautiful daughters too. So they're in prep in year 2. And I'm a school teacher as well. So that's kept me busy, or especially this year during a pandemic. So yeah, look, my money story is the transformation's been lifelong, because when I grew up, I feel like money was talked about quite a bit at home. Not in the way of investing, no. It was very much in the way of management and good stewarding of that money. But growing up, like my dad was a school teacher too. My mum was is still a paralegal, and she works from home and has been doing it for about 37 years. But like I spoke to her and I said, "Mum, what was money like when we were young?" And she goes, "It was tight." And as kids, I guess we felt that we knew money was tight, and there was always a good rein and a good control of the money. But when I look back at it too, though, like I'm one of 4 children. We didn't go without at all, and we all learned a musical instrument. You know, we all played sport, and as I grew up, I used to ask Mum questions like, "Mum, can we get this? Mum, can we get that?" And Mum's like, "No, this is how much money we've got here. We've got to set that aside. We've got to do this for that." And so as I went along, I used to just ask questions as I went, and so I guess the questions got answered. And my curiosity as a kid, you know, if you want to get a bike or if you want to buy a drum kit or something, you're always trying to wrangle a bit of cash out of Mum, but it was always really, really tight. So there was really good money management growing up, and I feel like even though I didn't realize it, it was imparted to me as I was growing up. And so when you get a bit older and you start talking about saving for cars or saving for houses and stuff, like my family were just a great source of wisdom, because they'd been there and they were open to chatting about, you know, how to save and what makes for a good purchase. And so I feel like the money transformation story has just been going all my life, and it's still going now. So.
Did you ever have that jousting sticks? Tell them they're dreaming, or what do they want for that? $200?
I'll tell you what, I did. There was a time when I was looking for, I used to want to play drums, and Mum and Dad said, "You've got to save up for that." So I got myself a paper round, and I actually looked in the Trading Post for about 2 years, like trying to research how to do it. And I would go to my dad, "Oh, Dad, where's Epping?" And we were living in Baronia at the time. He goes, "Epping, I'm not driving there." And then I said to him, "Oh, what about Cranbourne?" He goes, "I'm not driving to Cranbourne." And then all of a sudden I go, "What about Wantirna South?" He goes, "Oh, all right, yeah, that's nearby. We'll go there." So I did, yeah, did use it, the old, yeah.
And so you did this paper round, yeah, and you've gone and you've worked from, you know, sort of 2 to 3 years to save that up.
Yeah.
And you're able to buy your first set of drums.
Yeah. So Dad was pretty, like, when I spoke to my dad, I was just like, "How am I going to get more money?" And he goes, "Look, get a job." And I actually started delivering papers when I was 12.
Yeah.
And I reckon at the time I was probably pulling in about $22 a week, $23. But the cool thing about it is it's 100% cash in your back pocket as a kid. So, you know, a good 2 years of saving. I saved up $400 to get myself a drum kit when I was in the end I was 15. And it was to me, that was the biggest like lesson in delayed gratification. And I reckon a lot of my stories about, you know, purchases after that have stemmed from those experiences. So yeah.
And you're a drummer now?
Yeah, I started playing piano, did that for about 10 years, and then drums, and then just a bit of cool guitar at school. Only 4 chords. I know 4 chords, and that's all you need to know. So
yeah. They're the 4 chords I'm trying to master now.
So I mean, this is great, right? Because we've got most households, you know, money's taboo. Don't talk about it. Obviously, you've recognised early that your parents got 4 kids, right? So they're expensive, aren't we, to raise?
Yeah.
And But did you get into the weeds in terms of when you said Mum said she's got a jar for this or something for that? Or did you ever ask them to unpack their money system? Or when you were setting up your own, you're getting a paper round, I'm assuming you probably had a ComSec Kids Saver account or something along those lines.
Award Saver, yeah.
Award Saver, there it is. Right.
Yeah.
So tell us that story.
Yeah, so Mum and Dad had a jar called Extras, and I never knew what this jar of extras was. But I tell you what, it had notes in it, and as a kid, you're like, oh, extras jar, it's full of money. So every now and then, Dad would be like, oh, I've got to go and get this. Where do I get the money from? And Mum goes, check extras. And so you go and check the extras jar. Awesome. And Dad would have like a little plastic sealed like coin wallet in the glove box of the car too, and that was petrol money. So there was cash just dropped around. So there was like allocated. It was almost like your discretionary spend you talk about, but it was all cash and it was allocated around. But as far as getting into like the day to day, I didn't ask Mum about that. All I know is when I was out the shops, the credit card swiped, and it was the old style with the carbon paper. And I was always like, Mum, how are you doing this? I remember asking one time, how are you doing this? She goes, oh, it's all borrowed money. She said, and I'm just like, oh, this is rad. This is great. You can just borrow anything. And she goes, no, it's not like that. But that's as far as we got really. Back to your story about my account with the award saver. It was supposed to be a high interest account. I don't think I got that much interest, but it did encourage me to save because Mum taught me about interest. So my paper round money used to go into like a primary account, and once a month I'd get a delivered paper statement, right? And it would have like a running balance, and you're like, oh, you can look through all your different paper rounds for each week, and you'd see the balance going up. And Mum would always say, how much money do you want to take out this month? And when I was 15, $20 a month, I used to be like, oh, $20. But then I'd always say, oh, Mum, can you put some into my award saver? I never knew what the percentage interest rate was, but I knew it was increasing in some way. So Mum helped me like set all those things up, and that was a real great lesson of saving in the days.
Where are you in the birth order? You oldest, youngest?
Oh, yeah. I'm the oldest. I don't know if I'm the best example. My younger sister Laura is an absolute saint. She's wonderful, but the other two are okay. No, I'm just joking.
On average,
they're all great. They're all great.
Yeah, good answer. Good answer.
I guess so. Then money not being taboo, money being talked about. You leave the house and then you move into your own roof over your own head. You get married. What does your version of budgeting look like at that point? What did all of these sort of lessons by osmosis and by observation that you'd seen? What did that actually mean that your system looked like when you started out on your own?
Yeah, good question. The best thing about our family is that from day one, my wife and I have had excellent financial communication, and we talked about everything. We talked about, how much rent, when was rent coming out? Because we rented for a year. To answer your question, first of all, I think it was unknown. Like, I think there's a stat saying the most financially illiterate people out there are 18 to 24-year-olds. Now, I was 24 when I got married, and so we learned as we went. But our plan was to save a deposit for a house. And this is just around the time of the GFC too. So it was a really tricky time, and there was a bit of uncertainty, but we're like, no, we're still saving for a house because we want our own place. So literally everything went into, at the time, it was just into the high interest account. We had a credit card, but I tell you what, our mindset around that was really interesting. I didn't really understand the 55 days thing. And I reckon 3 days after we put anything on a credit card, it was paid off. Like, just being in the red was a really stressful thing for us, not knowing what good debt and bad debt was at the time. And like coming into marriage too, like the only debt I had was HECS. My wife didn't have any debt. So we were debt free, and we really just wanted to save everything that we could. And we did well. We didn't scrimp though. We still went out to, we still went out to the movies and had dinner, and we loved our first year of marriage. It was great. Didn't go on any big holidays or anything like that. My family's always tented and caravaned all their life, so we did pitch a tent on the same side as them that Christmas. So yeah, we just wanted to get into the property market, and so after about 12 months of saving, really hard, we were really blessed to find our PPO, which we're still in today. But you get into your first house, and I'll tell you what, you thought you were saving and scrimping really well before you had a mortgage. The moment that number hits of, you're in debt this much, for, you know, and the mortgage brokers go, remember $1 equals 3, and you're like, oh, I can't spend a thing. So it was a new kettle of fish when we came into our PPR, because we were just like, we've just really got to make sure we pay this loan down, because at the time interest rates were like 8%, right? And there was talk of them going higher. So, you know, everyone forecasted like 9% rates, and I'm looking at our mortgage going, far out, where are we really going to be paying that much if it gets that high? So there was a bit of stress there.
Did you fix anything, Brendon? Did you hedge and do a fix at that time, like a few people?
No,
did?
I tell you what, a few of my I knew a few people that did, and we were glad we didn't. So we rode the wave of decreasing interest rates over those years.
Yeah.
And I think it was around about 2012, 2013 that we really started to feel a bit more in control of our finances. So.
But it's very clear in your story here that your state of your wallet plays a role in your mindset. And that's very much come from a nurture backstory in terms of being debt free. And so I suppose the transition there from sort of having this fear of debt, as well as learning very early about delayed gratification, which is outstanding in the drum kit story. When you're in this state of mind and you're worrying about that, what do you go looking for? What I mean, what was the trigger? What was the nudge that sort of said, is there another way, or did you stumble across it, or where you find yourself today?
So I guess as time goes on, you see what the power of leverage is, and you get a bit of a buffer. So I think for us, getting that buffer, and I think after our first year, we had a good, healthy buffer there. I think your mind changes when you start having, you look at your financial situation, you go, oh, we've got a good amount of money here in case there's trouble. I think that's when our mind started relaxing a bit more. And, state of wallet pays you to state of your mind. We still knew we owed that money, but it was just nice to know that you could draw upon that if need be. Because like back in the day, we had no idea about, how much we should borrow, how much we shouldn't. Like we were both working full time. I was a full-time graduate teacher. Beck was in admin. Like half of our take-home income went to principal and interest on our property. And so I guess as the time went on, when it went down, it was just a relief when those buffers started to get a bit bigger. So I think does that answer your question?
Yeah. It's the trigger to, one, I feel comfortable, and then there's something else there, right? Because obviously you've moved into knowing you've got that knowledge, but you've also improved your money management setup because you discovered Money Smarts, and I'm really keen to work out how that transition happened.
Yeah, so like before Money Smarts, there was a budget, I guess, but it was your very old school budget, like literally week by week sort of thing. And we were looking at, paycheck to paycheck. We weren't living that way, but we were kind of assessing our bank balance paycheck to paycheck, and I was paid fortnightly and so was my wife, but it was alternating weeks. So every week I'm looking at the bank balance, and it made me a bit anxious. So like we're talking now 2014, I think, and I thought, no, there's got to be a better one out there. So I literally Googled a spreadsheet and I found one. And this spreadsheet was good because it had a similar sort of line to Money Smarts. Wasn't as good, boys. Wasn't as good. But it was a similar line that it put out a lot of the essential spending and provisional spending, and it showed you your surplus cash flow. And so that for me was a big reliever. And I guess that was the story of understanding cash flow is the main story there. Trapping that surplus, like you guys talk about, trapping that surplus was the thing we started looking at. But saying that though, like that was a great stepping stone for Money Smarts, because Money Smarts basically is so good because like once a month now, I'm not looking at my bank balance until I do the checkup. I'm not looking when I get paid, which is in the middle of the month. I'm doing the end of the month checkup. But it just goes down to absolutely every single thing in your household. And I think from using Money Smarts, like at the beginning, and even still now, I'll be honest, even still now, we're still not hitting our surplus cash flow because we're making so many adjustments to what we think we're spending on things. And in particular, like when we were seeing our property advisor, I'll never forget this, but he goes, we put down that we have a budget of $400 a month for groceries, and he sits down and he goes, what is your secret? And, and I knew at that time, I'm like, I better do some homework and work out. And look, I put down $800. The reality is it's close to 1,000, and $1,000 a month is insane just on your food. So Money Smart's helped me just to get down, and you can't cheat the system. You've just got to be honest, and you've got to go through everything. But once you get it all not locked in and you see your surplus cash flow hitting that target you're supposed to, that's a great place to be as a family. You really know that you're making the right choices, and if you have to make modifications in provisional spending in any way, your absolute money situation is what it is on the graphs.
And was that when you thought that you were first really in control of your money, or were there moments before that where you well, I had a buffer, but ultimately you felt like you were in control of all the levers, you had the power, or was it different?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think, and my wife would agree with this too, we've always been in control of money, but I think there are degrees to how much in control you are and how much you are in control. So I would definitely say now I feel so much more in control than I ever have been. But saying that as well, like we've had good control of our money, knowing when we can, splurge on a Queensland holiday, or if we get a car, knowing exactly how much we can spend, because I like to pay cash for cars. So knowing how much we spend based on the lifespan. So yes, I feel like I'm in the most control I've ever been now. But to say, to discredit the past, I think everyone's always learning. So there was an element of control, but it was just always a growing understanding.
Well, what it sounds like, Brendon, is there wasn't any baggage for you to undo, because it sounds like the conversations you were having from a very early age were very open and transparent. So it's kind of like you weren't heading left when you should have been heading right. You've been heading right all along. It's just these compounding improvements along the way, which is great. So it's kind of an extension. Oh, go on.
Oh no, I was just going to say, there's a story of that too, because I reckon I pushed the boundaries when I was young, because I would say to my dad, we had an 85 Tarago, we had the people mover, right? And friends of mine, they had the Chrysler Voyager. And I said to my dad, I said, we've got a big family. We go, wouldn't it be great to get a new car? And he's like, no way. And so I think there was a point in there too that I really did push my dad to go and do the nice glitzy, purchase. But hearing him justify, we have got a financial story here, we need to stick to it. I look back at that, and that was a very big story and a very important story that I still hold with me today. So I just wanted to include that.
Yeah, and I think from these stories you're telling, there seems to be a maturity that from your age that is unusual for your demographic. And I don't want to be judgmental, but all of these things that your dad have given, like paying cash for cars, and all of the things that you're talking about around making measured decisions, are not necessarily normal of your generation type. Agree or disagree?
Yeah, look, I'd agree. I've got quite a few friends, and we're all very different with our money situations. I guess, yeah, to an extent, I would agree. I don't have my ear to the ground as much as you guys do, but I know, and I've learnt this the hard way, is that our story is different to every single other person's, and like seeing what your friends do or what other families are doing, and you're like, oh, we can do that. You really have to sit back and go, does this fit into what we believe? Yes or no, and why? And often that comes, that's not easy. Sometimes it's a huge conversation. The wife wants something, or I want something, and it's a tricky conversation. It really is. So yeah. Look, I think it's just our money story. I have seen some people that get into some bad debt, and it does restrict you from future decisions. But I guess a lot of our discussions are, what does this key purchase here, how does that impact our plan, in 2 years of doing this or something like that? So, all along, and going back to when we were first married, like a lot of our friends were going overseas to Europe and everything, and we didn't do that. If we had have done that, we wouldn't have got our house when we did. But not to say that, a Europe trip was bad. Like, we would have loved to have traveled, but our choice was to save for a house. So I think we're very aware that there's a ripple effect with, especially your big ticket purchases and how you pay for those big ticket purchases in relation to where else your money's hoping to go.
I think that speaks volumes, Brendon, in terms of your awareness, right? Because you've learnt delayed gratification. You've been well taught by your parents. And just as a sidebar, I'm curious, did they retire financially able to support themselves?
Yeah, they did. My dad's retired, and I think he's working harder in retirement than he was at a school. So my mum still works full time, and I think she look, she might listen to this. She loves her job. I think she loves her job. Either that, or I don't think she knows what she'll do when she stops working.
So that's the sidebar. Because I mean, with that type of sacrifice, because it is trade-offs. You've learnt the art of the trade-off, and that is the delayed gratification versus the short-term gratification. And, you know, your story about saving and paying cash for cars, right? Like ultimately that comes back into what is becoming a bit of a sort of an awareness thing in the series, is that you've got, you know, there's people who have got this sort of understanding of value benefit and wants versus needs assessment. And you can see that Europe versus house has a trade-off that is allowing you to do what you're doing. And I think what I also love about this series is that we're seeing all different people at different stages, but you know, you are the exception to the rule in terms of how most people are showing up and organising affairs. So I love success stories because hopefully it breeds, you know, more of that sort of positive vibe out there for people to say, well, if he can do it, I can do it too, right?
Yeah, and there's a bit of enjoyment in that as well, though. Like the delayed gratification for me, there's like I really love like having thinking time around things too. So like our last car that we bought, I spent 2 years like researching and looking for that and knowing the price that I wanted for it. Like we weren't desperate for it, but it gave me thinking time. It gave me time for really, really good research. But then there was a story that went with that car because I'm like, we worked hard to find that car. It wasn't we worked hard to pay for the car. We worked hard to find it, and we ended up getting it. And now it's just got this value to it that, you know, you're just not going to throw it away quickly. So yeah, that's a part of the delayed gratification piece that I really like too, because I find that that's the case with, you know, again, going back to the drums, it was a big story of scouring the trading post and then going and having a look around and knowing what I wanted to get and how much money I had, and, you know, not so much heckling because I don't really, you know, not a big fan of that, but just, you know, having that time to research and look into it and develop that story adds value to those purchases that you have.
Can you remember when you first got exposed to Money Smarts? Was it a passing comment on TPC? Was it, did you download? And was it, so number one, and number two, was the transition to what you were doing to the Money Smart system smooth, bumpy, somewhere in between?
Yeah. So I got onto it before you guys released it. I think you guys were using the portal, so I got into it before you released it. So when I was actually we were doing a renovation in we were making an ensuite, and I was listening to your podcast, had the ears in, and I'm like, oh, what? They're releasing it to the community? That's awesome! Like, this is a great idea. So that's how I came across it, you know, a bit more that way. But I've seen the updates that you guys have done along the way, and, you know, Money Stretch is fantastic because it's that the Money Stretch would have been great for when we were, you know, looking to have kids, and I'm looking now going, oh, you know, it's for us, it's just a great story of, you know, what would it look like without this wage here. But Money Fit is, you know, that was a great one that Beck and I sat down and looked at because, you know, and Bryce, I know you've said this too. The clients always come in and go, where do we sit amongst everyone else? And we sat down and we're like, oh, it's actually it was really, really affirming, to see our age bracket. You know, where we sat on it, and we're about middle in some of them. We're down, you know, pretty high with some of our spending in some areas, and, you know, we're a bit low in some others. But it's just it's good to know that the areas that you want to be affirmed in, you can be. So it's just a fabulous portal, and I love the updates you guys keep bringing out on it too. So keep them coming.
Trust me, there's a couple of game changers coming that I can't wait for either.
Give us a sneak peek. You got anything for us now?
Oh, I'm not going to give it away now. No, I'm not going to do it now. I don't want anyone copying it before we release it.
Hey, Brendon, can you? You're obviously a successful user of the Money Smart system, and it's actually you can hear the passion that it's transforming your family's way to approach money. Someone who's listening to this summer series, they actually aren't, you know, using it. Can you give some insights into why you think they should, and also some of the unique ways that you think it's benefiting you, the day that you pay yourself the 7-day float, how that's helping you, all those sorts of things.
Yeah. For me, the essential spending is an interesting one, and just to divert a bit, because a big thing that I do is every year I try and get that essential spending down as low as I can. So I'm ringing the power companies, the gas companies, really trying to get a good deal on that, because essential to me, like, it just, that there are good deals out there. I'm not haggling, saying do better. I'm just like, what's your price? Okay, no thanks, or yes thanks. I'll do that with mobile phones too. Like, I'm a big fan of low cost mobile phone plans, but with good data and SIM only, paying outright for phones. And so, and also insurances, just making sure, not that you're getting the cheapest insurance, but reading the fine print, making sure that your situation's covered in there. So I really like the essential spend and looking at that and going, can I get it lower? The provisional spend's a good one. I really struggle with this, and I think for us, we've had blowouts with over COVID. Maybe the alcohol one may have just gone. Like, I'm a big fan of buying in bulk, so I buy my meat in bulk. I buy alcohol comes at once, and one day Beck opens the door and she sees all these boxes of wine, and I've gone. I said, don't worry, it's just for a week. No. But it was literally, it was about 3 months worth. But like the provisional spend, it's hard. Sometimes you blow out on it, and I really do struggle. It's probably an area that I need to fix up and really just go, nope, we've either said this is the way, or put the actual figure in and make sure we keep evaluating that. Sometimes a car service goes a bit above what you want, so the provisional spend's a tricky one. The 7-day float, I haven't ever done that, and I'll tell you why. There is a reason. We did have lending with a lender that had a really tricky portal, and we couldn't get the card on the offset account. So we were running off a separate cash account in a different provider. It took about 3 or 4 days to transfer in. However, we've recently refinanced and they're a bit better. So I need to really get off my backside and do a 7-day float.
How were you setting up there, Brendon? How were you setting up with just all on the credit card, or all out of the primary and just doing direct debits? Yeah.
So we were doing as much as we could automated off the credit card, and the rest was what we could was from the account.
And I think that's important for the community to understand that that is a way in which you can run the hybrid money smarts, and it's very good for disciplined people. Like, disciplined people can run straight off the credit card as opposed to the 7-day float. But we are really talking about, you probably sit in that 5% of people who can pull that off because of your attention and focus on it. And that's why always, because we've had enough experience with thousands and thousands of clients and now tens of thousands of people using Money Smarts, that we just know that the temptation's so great that we want to keep that separate, because we'll get that sort of slippage spend and that discretionary spend that just goes on and on.
And we were very aware of that, actually. It's good that you brought that up, because we were always disciplined, always have been, with a very low limit credit card. It was never over $7,000, so that helped.
Yeah, and now you are set up with the right structure. You potentially can move across and potentially wire that money across, like your mum used to do when she had the jar, and then away you go. You put it in the different envelopes, jars, or there's the story. Love it.
And what about your wife? Equally on board, or is she as passionate as you, or it's just she sees the benefits, sees the system working, and thinks, well, why resist?
Yeah, at the beginning, we were both kind of learning as we went. But I think as I've gone, I've really developed a passion. Like, since listening to you guys, I've developed a big passion for good money management. And I think there's just been this a movement, I guess, towards me running the finances, but also running the finances by my wife. So, Beck's never asking about, why can't we do this, or what do you think about that? I think we talk about everything. But it's an interesting one. Like, the biggest bit of advice we ever got, and it was from pre-marriage counselling, and we still use it today. It's a great line, but Beck will go, thinking we could get, how about we get this for the girls for Christmas? And the line is, our financial situation. and they make the decision. So we've always been told that, and we always go by that. I wouldn't mind getting this. Well, our financial situation. You can make that choice, but our financial situation, and that's always worked for us. And it's just been a bit of a two-way respect thing.
Yeah, that's brilliant. You opened up by saying you've got excellent financial communication. So that's just a a tactic that shows that that's actually true day to day, which is terrific. What's the goal for you, Brendon? So you clearly got money management under control, and you're trapping surplus. Two questions. One, where could you get better? And it sounds like you've identified a couple of things about the 7-day float, but also what's the point in trapping the surplus? Where do you want to go?
Yeah. So I guess short term, we're hoping to do a renovation soon. So we're actually at the plans and engineering stage and just getting a quote. So hopefully in the short term, we're looking to do that. So we've actually, through the pandemic, we've really reined back our spending, and it's obviously been a great time to do that if you can. But I guess ongoing from that, our end goal is 70,000 passive income in retirement. And like from having our property plan, we actually, with the investment property we've got now, we could just keep going as long as we don't do this renovation. We could have kept going and had that. So there will be 3 more investment properties along our property plan. But the end goal, it's actually, if we do that, it's actually more than 70, because our end goal is to do what's happened to us, because we have had interest-free, like certain interest-free loans from, family for the house that we repaid. But we were very privileged in that situation. We want to be able to do that for our kids. But also we've got a heart for supporting people in the community that work for organizations where they're on 100% support of their wage. And like Beck and I, we really want to, when we're older, be able to give back to people, and not just give financially, but there is this journeying with them and having conversations around their work, however it is, whether they're in a free counselling centre, or they're an organisation that goes into schools, or so. And we've been doing that already on a smaller level, and it's just wonderful journeying with those workers that you're financially sowing into. So we want to kind of step up the gears with that. When we're in retirement, just have that little bit extra to be able to give back to where we see the need in our community.
7 steps of financial well-being is financial contribution as the top level. Yeah. I love it, Brendon. I love it.
Yeah, so, terrific.
So you're actually doing this. I mean, so how many kids are part of that story? Because you obviously come out of a big family. Is Beck from a big family as well?
Yeah, she's one of 3. So she's the youngest of 3. So she's from Adelaide as well. She's not as well. She's from Adelaide.
and so obviously, so there's 4 properties plus the PPOR with a renovation attached to that inside your property plan. And how many kids in total?
2.
2. Fantastic. Yeah. So there it is. There's the beautiful nucleus family with financially well off but again, not too excessive, not too over the top, but adding those extra properties at the end will give you the freedom to be able to do that financial contribution, which is, again, all about purpose and output and living a fruitful life. It's brilliant.
Yeah, definitely. No, affluence has never been something that we've ever been a part of, and I don't think I ever want to be a part of. Not to say that it's bad, it's just not us. I know it works for some people, but yeah.
But you're self-sustaining, right? You're not a drain on any third party. So, your wealth that you are creating is still aspiring to pass on the legacy, do financial contribution, but also not draw on any government services that you don't actually need, knowing that you've got a safety net there in the event that things go pear-shaped.
Yeah, exactly right. And we're even seeing it now. Like we've had our investment property since 2016, and it's just ticked over to neutral territory. So I'm like, well, from here on out, we are contributing to the government as well with our taxes. So yeah, it's already starting.
Beautiful.
Well, it's a nice little reinforcing point, Ben, that negative gearing is not a strategy. It's a tax outcome. It's a moment in time, and at some point it switches over. And as Brendon just said, he is contributing to the tax purse. Hey, I've got a question for you around. So clearly, affluence isn't your bag. You got conservative goals. You're a good, using your words, you've modelled good stewarding of money and great money management. But you've also just sort of modelled that, You know, it's not about 10 plus properties and renovating and giving up weekends. It's your own home, nice renovation, add 3 or 4 investment properties. I'm interested to know with a family upbringing around great money management, how do you feel about debt and the fact that getting into debt for your own home and 3 investment properties would probably, I'm making assumptions here, but probably put you into conversations that you didn't have around the family table. So how do you feel about that?
Yeah, look, I owe a lot of our starting investment journey, because before you guys, I hadn't discovered you. Beck's uncle was an incredible mentor. So he's been in the investment game for a while. So he had the good stories and the bad stories. And I guess he was the one who was, he was honest with his figures. He told me his debt level and the LVR he was on. And I was shocked, but he's just like, but you know, I'm getting this rent from here, and you know, this has gone up here, but this one's gone, and like there was one that went down a bit, but he goes, but this one went up here, and I went home to Beck, and I was like, I think it's all about cash flow, and this is at the time I didn't know that's what it was about, but we were going down that line of going, I don't think it's about how much money you owe. I think it's about being able to service debt, and that was the first time I learned about how it's not all about, you know, that big red dollar figure, but it's about the plan of how that plays out in your money management strategy, and how you're either paying off the debt or servicing that debt with income. So it was a hard decision, a hard discussion, I'll say, with my wife. But for us to get into the first investment property, I was literally just walking down the street, and I saw the bank I was with, and I've just done a big left turn, and I've walked in and I said, how much money will you lend me? And they told me a figure. I was like, oh, wow. And they'd reduce our interest rate too. And so I went home. I'm like, Beck, we've got to invest money. And I'll cut that story there for a moment, because I think as it's gone on and interest rates have gone down, like you can get a fixed rate now for under 2%. It's so much more now about cash flow, because cash is just so cheap if you can get your hands on it. So I think there's been an evolution of debt since the large interest rates of, you know, the early 2000s, or even, you know, the 90s, you know, 17% or whatever. I feel that 8% was high. Going down now to the stage they are, and a lot more people either investing in property or investing in shares. Like, people know that they can't get good returns from savings in the bank account. So there is a shift in mindset of debt, people understanding the idea of good debt. So that's where we're at now. But at the same time, you've got to be really responsible with how much debt you have, and the banks are doing that for you at the moment as well anyway. You do have to be responsible with how much you have, and have that plan of when that's going to be paid down, you know, what's going to be paid down, and how you're going to service that over the time.
Cash flow is king. Sorry, bro.
Cash flow is king. But so for you, it was just a case of lifting your eyes and focusing on the horizon, rather than the way I try and sort of coach people through that is, if you're walking on a bridge that's up high, if you look over the edge, you'll get wobbly. But if you keep focusing on the horizon, you'll be fine. And I think that's to describe what you did. You focused on the cost of servicing the debt rather than how much debt there was, and that kind of kept you moving forward. Well, look, Brendon, your story is remarkable, right? And for a number of reasons. One is clearly, you know, it was really nice to hear the story about how money was in your house, and also then the fact that within your own household you've managed it. But you've been exposed to a framework which is Money Smarts. You've implemented it. There's obviously benefit from doing that, and the goal at the end of the day for you is $70,000 passive income, which is great. But I think the real story here is that it allows you to do the things that make you a good human being, right? The fact that you're altruistic in nature, you're looking to see how you can serve the people around you, and by doing what you're doing allows you and your family this freedom of mind and of purpose to actually do that. You know, to be able to have that conversation with you and for you to articulate that is not only a credit to your family, but hopefully gives everyone who's listening to this a better understanding, because there's 2 journeys here, right? There's the one journey of saying, I want this financial outcome, but the other journey is who you become when you get it. Because if you don't have to worry about money, it frees you up to do a whole bunch of other cool things that you really want to do, which you've articulated before. And I'm sure you've only sort of touched the tip of the iceberg of the contribution that you want to make. So, you know, you've got an amazing story to share.
Oh, thanks, Bryce.
Now, we couldn't let you go. Well, there's a couple more things we want to do. So we want to give you the mic in a minute and sort of, pass on any wisdom that you want, because I know there's one great little tip that you have for Money Smarts. But I also know that as a school teacher, so here's another example of, school teachers are underpaid. We all know that. Hands up, all those poor school teachers who don't get paid enough, because obviously it's very difficult.
Particularly the ones looking after my kids.
Yeah. So, so in that particular case, that is not a way to financial freedom, a teacher's salary, but you are doing something, because we always talk about why isn't this stuff, taught in school, but you've got something that you've designed. And so I want you to talk to us about how you teach your kids about money and decisions about life, and all of that. So please take us through your little program.
Yeah, so I've got a classroom economy, Ben and Bryce, and it's an absolute hit. So the way it works basically is every child has a job. I've got jobs like environmentalist, electrician, class banker, loan officer. We've got the auctioneer, all these different jobs, and they get paid a salary. Every week on a Friday, they get paid. They go and see their banker. The banker writes it all down. It's all manual. They write it all down. They have deposit slips, withdrawal slips. So it's a bit old school in that way. But I tell you what, like I teach year 6 kids. It's amazing. They do not understand the deposit and withdrawal thing. I'm just like, how do you not know what deposit and withdrawal means? So even then they're just like, what do I write here? I'm like, what are you taking out? So they do all that manually. They go to their bank, and there's 5 bankers, and there's 4 kids that go to each banker. And so then they've also got to pay rent. So they've got to rent their desk. And this is a good one. They really like this. I've actually got a beautiful view for my room. So there's a desk over with a view, and you pay 10% more rent for that one. But then there's a couple of desks that are near the bin, and you get 10% less off that one. So there's a bit of a, where do I want to sit? What do I want to pay? And so there's also the ability to buy your own desk. So kids can save up each week and buy your own desk. But this is where I've been a bit, I've got to tweak it a bit, because I've said $3,000 for a desk, right? $600 for rent a week, $3,000. And I've said the loan officer has to assess you. To assess you, you need to show them how much money you have, and the maximum you can borrow is 3 times the amount of cash that you have. Well, it didn't take them long to work out that I can just save $1,000 in 2 weeks and then go and get a loan. I don't have to pay rent. And so I might have to jig that a bit.
Well, no, in the current environment, there's a lot of places where your mortgage is actually cheaper than your rent. So it's probably about
exactly right. So to be a bit sneaky, after the US election, I actually changed a few of the scenarios, because I said, well, this is a global thing, guys. It's affected all the markets. And we introduced unemployment. So all of a sudden, 2 people every week were unemployed, and they're on New Start, and they're like, and rent went up to $900. And they're like, Mr. Deith, I can't cover rent. I'm like, well, you're going to have to get creative. I don't know what you're going to do. You're going to have to work it out. So it was absolutely amazing, because the kids actually said, I'm going to make a job for the classroom. So get this. One of my kids comes up to me and he goes, Mr. Deith, I've got a job. I want to be the class shoe shiner. Ooh. And so because we wear black shoes here, right? He's come in with his black shoe polish, and he's polished everyone's shoes, and he gets $300 extra a week for doing that. It was amazing. And so everyone's walking around with beautifully polished shoes. I could have. And another girl goes, oh, Mr. Deith, I've got a job. She goes, I could be the class pastor. I'm like, oh, what does that mean? She goes, well, I could counsel people if they need some help. And so all these jobs have come out from the woodwork, and they've tried to make money on the side of their normal job. And I feel that that's really helped out. Now, the end of the week, this is where it gets really exciting, because the end of the week, we've actually had a bit of a call for any items at home that you don't use anymore, and we auction them. So we auction them off, and I've tried my luck. I listened to a few of the podcasts about how to be an auctioneer or something. So I've got my rolled up piece of paper, and I'm calling out things. I'm like, good to have you in the bidding, sir. Oh, welcome back. Are you done? Are you done? You finished? Sold. So we're selling all of like a pair of unicorn socks will get bought by a bloke, and I'm like, why are you buying them? Each to their own. But at the end of the week, it was interesting, because some kids have not bought anything, and they've held on to their money and saved, and others have burnt the lot. And so I don't teach them anything out of that. I feel that they're learning from their experiences. Mm-hmm. And the kids who aren't buying anything at the auction, they're the ones purchasing other desks, and they're the ones collecting rent from other desks. I didn't tell them about that. They came up and asked me, and they said, Mr. Deith, can I buy another desk? And I was like, well, yes, you can. And so he's got 3 deeds to his name.
Wow.
Mate, so it's great fun. The kids love it.
Well, your enthusiasm is infectious, right? But wow, imagine if that became a part of the syllabus that not only was on your campus but was across the country. I mean, that would what's a withdrawal? What's a deposit? That's amazing. So
and I've got to mention too. Like I'm in a team of 4. We're all doing it, and we've all gone off each other's ideas as well. So not all of that is my idea. It was a big team effort. The credit there, but it's still in progress. Just trying to get that system working nicely.
And at the end of the year, does that correlate into some type of extra excursion or something along those lines? Like, what's the?
I'm open for suggestions, Ben. It's how we finish in a couple of weeks.
All right.
Don't tell me.
Put us into the think tank. We'll see what we can come up with.
I've just said they need to be debt free, and we need to see the position of everyone. So we'll do a bit of maths on that, but that will be well over their heads for some of them, because it is tricky, and they've got their envelopes of little cash, and but we'll see how we go. But no, nothing. It would be nice, but there are some nice little things that we're doing just because we're nice teachers.
Oh,
yeah.
Awesome. That is brilliant.
Well done, mate. That's an incredible initiative. Well done. I think your students will remember that for right through to their childhood, which hopefully has the same impact that the conversations that you were having over your dinner tables had on you. Hey, when you wrote into us, you said you've got a hack for money smarts. It's around permission to splurge. Can you expand on that, please?
Yeah, so like we do run a tight ship, but at the same time, we like nice things, and so again, it's that delayed gratification piece. If we want to go on a nice holiday, we look at it and go, what will that look like next year? So the holiday budget might get tweaked up, and you have a bit of a look at that. It might be that we need a new phone, and you wouldn't buy a secondhand phone. I wouldn't buy a secondhand phone at the moment with a pandemic on or something. So you have to add to that home electronics thing. So I think having very open conversations around how the provisional spend can be a bit fluid if it can be justified. So there's been there was a time last year we needed a new retaining wall built, and I gave my hand a go at that, but it was good just to put a bit of extra money into the building and maintenance budget of the provisional spend, and then looking at the cash flow and seeing, we're still trapping surplus here, but literally with all those things, sometimes you do have to refine. And an example of that would be like I did the classic COVID purchase this year. I bought a bike, the first person to do that in COVID-19. But I was really stretching the boundaries of the budget with my wife. And she said a flat no to one of the ones that I was after. And I was like, what? She goes, that is an insane amount of money. Go and think about it. And we're saving for a reno as well. I did. I went out and thought about it. And I'm like, yeah, I've never really ridden that much before. Why would I want something like that? So even though you do give yourself permission to splurge, sometimes you really have to take note of the difference in your surplus cash flow at the end of the day, and if you're happy with that, because you still want to be capturing as much as you can. And so there's always a different story depending on what you're buying there.
And what was that marriage counselling query? What was that?
That cost me a lot. Yeah, a lot of money. No.
You know the budget, honey.
When the wife goes, we need to chat out on the deck, that there's something you got to talk about. Like, all right.
Very good.
Very good. And finally, is there any questions you have for us?
I do have a question for you. So looking into our renovation at the moment, it is an obscene amount of money how much builders and material in particular costs. Now, I've been listening to you guys for a long time, and I love you guys. Your storytelling is incredible. So I don't feel like it's been touched on much, but does material cost factor in when you're advising people on properties for capital growth? Because for me now, I reckon more than ever, and I'll tell you why I say this, because in 2011, we did a bathroom and it cost us 10 grand. In 2018, we did a very similar renovation and it cost us 18. So it's a big jump in price. Like, it was very similar, not much different, same builder. And I feel material cost is really getting away. And I'm wondering, is material cost that's built into a house or an asset, is that becoming more and more important now that material costs have gone up?
It won't always be that way. Humans are ingenious in the sense that we will, if certain materials get beyond the budget of most, we will find ulterior materials and different ways in doing that. And you'll probably see repurposing around recyclables and all of that in terms of how we might create walls are rubber, or different sort of ways in terms of that. And whenever you go to say the really big a home builder expos and all that type of thing, you're starting to see some of that next generation material and modular material and 3D printing material and all that starting to take shape. I mean, you only need to Google the robotic bricklayer and how many bricks that they can lay an hour. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. It's an Australian product built out of Western Australia. So, I mean, it builds brilliantly, fantastic straight walls and very at record speed, and it doesn't need a smoko, right? So you're going to see that happen. I mean, the biggest cost is usually labour. So from my experience, and I've had a good experience and also one where I had a cost blowout on the stage of the renovation we did, and that's because we didn't do a fixed price contract. So the best thing that I could say to people, because we were owner builder, and we did our renovations in 3 stages because we didn't have the cash flow to be able to afford it. So yeah, that was probably the one thing that I would say, that if you are not, and I was obviously working full time and Jane was project managing, and she's too kind. So the builders can take a little bit of liberty in terms of we'll get to that. And so when you've got 4 people on site, you're talking about $60 to $65 an hour per builder. So you're upwards of $2,000 a day or $3,000 a day in labour cost. You need them to be productive, and so that's where it can blow out. So my advice is always fixed building price contracts, and I think if you do shop around for materials, but see, builders are they're not necessarily looking for new products. So if you do a bit of the research and you show them some of the stuff and you push a little bit harder in terms of, so that material that you're showing me is durable, but is $60 per square metre. But I've found something that's $40 per square metre, has the same guaranteed lifespan and so forth. Are you willing to accommodate that? Because I've got a budget, right? Yep. And I think you've got to think about that more. Bryce, have you got anything else?
No, well said. But I think what I was thinking is, Brendon, it doesn't sound like that you're not already across a lot of that research anyway. It sounds like you are. I think.
Oh no, that was new to me. I'd never heard about a robotic bricklayer.
But in terms of turning over stones and making sure that you got the best price and making sure that you've got the most cost-effective material. So, but mate, you'll have to send us some photos when you've done the renovation. That'll be nice to see. But hey, it's been a treat. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. I think our community will have enjoyed hearing your insights and learning how you've applied them in your own situation. And
I've loved it too, boys. This dream come true to me. It's I've loved listening to you. So thanks for having me.
No, it's a pleasure.
You've just demonstrated how to organise your money. You knew how to do that. You've always felt in control, but now you're empowered and you've acted on it. You've got a plan in place. You've got a roadmap. And as you say, even the best laid plans still have the ability for flexibility, because when you're talking long term, you've got to have that adaptability and a bit of agility in there. You've got all of that. I mean, you've worked it out, right? I mean, you should be taking over from me as I take a year off. We'll get you on the podcast with Bryce, and he'd be pretty happy with that, I reckon.
That's a good idea.
Could never do that, Ben.
Can't guarantee
the guru get back. Could not do that.
No, I'm only serious. Ben actually has. He might get his spot back. But hey, Brendon, again, it's been terrific. Thanks again for swinging by the Property Couch.
Pleasure, boys. Thanks again.
Wasn't that enjoyable, Ben?
Mate, how happy is he? I mean, if having control of your finances is all about happiness, he's a 10 out of 10. And I think there is something in that. I think there's something in the secret sauce about, how clearly aware he was, how in control he was. I mean, it was just, that is benchmarking yourself against someone who feels like they've got a lot going right, still tweaking, still, areas for improvement like all of us, but outstanding, just outstanding.
The biggest takeaway for me in having that chat with Brendon is I got enormous joy out of seeing the achievement of knowing very clearly what the financial goal is, but just the fact that him and his wife, Beck, they're not navel gazers. They're looking out in the world going, who can I serve? Who can I help? Even just the story about how he's helping his kids in his class. He's a giver. We obviously didn't speak to Beck, but you could just imagine that the birds of a feather flock together. Those two human beings would be wonderful dinner guests because they're thinking about other people, how they can serve other people. To me, that was a huge takeaway, because if you don't focus on yourself, you show up and you, as Brendon did, and wow, I enjoyed every minute of that.
Look, and shout out to Mr. and Mrs. Deith in terms of, for raising someone like Brendon and getting on with that 4 kids, and I mean, credit to you. I mean, if the world was made up of Brendons and Becks, I'll tell you what, how good would it be? What an amazing utopian world living in. So, as I said, he can take my seat any day. I think the podcast will improve with him in my seat.
Mate, you've undercooked yourself, but I certainly think he's a talented man. So, Brendon, thank you for coming onto the podcast. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, your insights, and also for showcasing how you've implemented money smarts and how you've transformed your finances so that other people can benefit from that. But Ben, if that's the way we're starting this series, we have got a cracking, 9 weeks in total, so we've got 8 more weeks to go. This is going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be huge. It's going to be huge. Until next week, Bryce.
Oh, knowledge is empowering, Ben, but apparently only if we act on it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. See you next week, folks.
Hey there, folks. Bryce here again. We hope you're enjoying our summer series, and if you find it inspiring, we've got 2 practical and easy tips for you. 1, download our free ebook, Make Money Simple Again, as it'll show you how to manage your money in less than 10 minutes a month. And number 2, sign up for free access on our My Wealth portal with more than 28,000 users. Shows you exactly how to manage your money easily in 10 minutes per month. And folks, we've also got a favor to ask you. We're running a survey this summer series to make sure that we continue to provide insights and updates that you want. We want to know what you want us to keep doing, stop doing, and start doing. What topic you want us to start unpacking. What news you want us to cover. It'll only take roughly 7 minutes to complete this survey, and as an appreciation for your time, we're giving you our brand new free report, The 7 Grades of Financial Wellbeing and Ways to Move to the Next Level. And if you provide us with your email along with your feedback, you'll go into the draw to win $500 of select residential property credit. That's right, $500 to spend on your property research. And the link is thepropertycouch.com.au/summer series. And as always, folks, just a quick reminder that nothing we've spoken about today constitutes financial advice. We recommend that you reach out to your licensed professional advisor so that you can look at your unique circumstances before acting on any information. And of course, don't forget, go to thepropertycouch.com.au/summer series.